Seems to work every once in a while. In life and in this scenario. All right. You guys?
Yeah. Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Brett's here.
Hey.
Hey. Brett wasn't... Oh, the podcast that went out today, you were there.
I was there, yeah, the one that went out today.
The one that goes out next week, you weren't.
It was funny when I saw that, I'm like, sickness. I'm like, did he just repost one that was from like 10 months ago?
Oh. Just going to start cycling.
And I was listening to it, I'm like, oh no, okay, no, we did that
It's
one.
a new one.
Wow, that's when we recorded a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back on the horse.
I was stacking them. It's called batch working, guys.
We've done that a lot of times.
What's that?
Stacking.
Stacked.
I mean, I've done that a lot of times. This has nothing to do with your guys' productivity or commitment to this gym. It is mine. 100%.
Is it on?
We are on.
Oh, cool.
We're 1 minute in.
Oh, sick. I'm never going to get used to that. I'm always going to be saying weird things and have no idea that we're on. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Welcome to the Coast Range podcast.
Oh, Nat's taking over. Let's go.
I thought it necessary because I was the one who texted Wes this last night and was super interested in what he does on the weekends. Just some weekends. But Wes was at an MDL1, and I feel like we always hear him say that, and he talks about MDL1s, and I'm very fascinated with them.
What's an MDL1?
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to talk about in the podcast was what is an MDL1? What's the goal of MDL1s? What is it like? What are the trainers like? What is all of that stuff? And how it correlates to us as the average CrossFitter. So I thought it would be cool. We have an inside man in our gym. So I thought we could ask Wes some questions about that and then kind of get his take on the scenario and kind of how that relates to us as the average CrossFitters.
And it does. It's like one of those things that a lot of people will be like, I don't really care about this situation.
Right.
But what we're going to dive into a little bit more is something that all of us as CrossFitters really should care about for sure.
And maybe we talk about what is an L1 before we even get into what is an MDL1.
Heck
like
yeah.
that, Brett. Good. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so level 1 is a 2-day course where we go over the 9 foundational movements we do in CrossFit, as well as technique and theory lectures behind CrossFit. So kind of what is CrossFit, what is health, what is fitness. A lot of the things that Greg Glassman, when he got into the fitness industry, saw that he wanted to fix, I guess. And part of that was just actually creating like an understanding of what is fitness. Because like if you look it up in the dictionary, it's the act of being fit. So that doesn't do anything. So we just dive a lot deeper into those theories behind that stuff. We go over the 9 foundational movements, and the goal of the course of the weekend is actually just to make the participants get a deeper understanding of what CrossFit is and to help them move better.
Cool. So an L1 is not just for a coach or a trainer in a gym.
No, not at all. And even when I took my level 1, I didn't want a coach. I took it because I just wanted to know more about CrossFit and kind of, geek out a little bit more about it and better my own movement. So I would say it's probably like maybe 70-30 people that want to coach and people that are just there to, learn more about CrossFit. But at the end of the course, if you pass the test, you can call yourself a level 1 certificate holder. And that basically means that you can accept money using CrossFit's name to promote yourself as a trainer. So I could put on my website, I'm a CrossFit level 1 trainer. You could come to me because you like CrossFit, and I could teach you CrossFit, and then you can give me money for CrossFit, and then I can create a career around that. You can also open up an affiliate that way too. But you also don't have to do any of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
You just can enhance your knowledge.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. So then what is an MDL1?
Exactly what I just said, except everybody in the room are really smart. They're just a bunch of doctors. That's all it is, from every different type of practice you can think of. Yeah.
Cool. And so those doctors that are in the room, how have they been found? Like, who found them? Why did they get to come?
So originally, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, you guys may have noticed during the open, they asked you, what do you do for a living? Are you a firefighter, nurse, doctor, nutritionist, like whatever it is. And when you click that button, that gave Greg and CrossFit a big snapshot of how many, what he calls docs do we have in the box. And so he was looking for how many doctors are out here doing this CrossFit thing and are bought into what we believe is health and fitness. And then he started inviting them to come to level ones.
Cool.
Enough of them wanted to come that he made just an MDL1. And this is our 12th one that we've done.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if I'm sure he invites certain people, but now I know there's a list of doctors that are trying to get into the MDL1.
Cool.
And so now it's like, you get a hold of somebody at seminars@crossfit.com and tell them you're a doctor and that you'd like to attend one of the MDL1s, and then they will hook you up with Joe Westerlin or Pat Sherwood, the guys that are kind of in charge of the whole thing, and get you into our MDL1s. They also do, it's kind of a cool thing, when they do the MDL1s, they're usually held at CrossFit headquarters in Scotts Valley, and most of the time they do what they call a DDC at the same time.
What's that?
The DDC is the Derelict Doctors Club, where it's basically everybody who's been through an MDL1 or subject matter experts in the field of chronic disease, surgery, mental health, whatever it may be, come and for 2 days just give lectures and talk and what's the word I'm looking for? Meet people and
network.
Yeah. Network with each other to kind of build this whole global understanding of like what is causing chronic disease and how can we fix that.
That's awesome. So how do they run simultaneously?
There's like a lecture hall that happens on one side of the building that they're doing that. At the same time, we're doing the level one.
Cool.
Yeah. And so like most of the doctors that will take our level one, they'll hear about the DDC and they'll come back for those.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then are there people at the MDL1s or even the DDC that aren't doctors?
Yes, there are. A lot of scientists, a lot of subject matter experts in their fields for sure that are there because of their just knowledge and ability to help.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is Greg? Do you have an idea of what Greg's goal, like overarching? I have an idea, but what is the goal of doing these MDL1s on like a broader spectrum? Yeah.
So, Greg has used the term of lifeguards and swim coaches, and he sees doctors as lifeguards. Like something really bad happens to you and you need to be saved right now, like you should go to a doctor.
Right.
But when you need a lifeguard, it's too late to have a swim coach.
Totally.
At that point, you're drowning in the ocean. You're not asking for a swim coach to come help you and teach you how to swim. You're asking for the lifeguard to come save you. What we need to do is get more more swim coaches. And the swim coaches are the level 1, level 2, level 3 coaches that we have in our CrossFit boxes that are teaching people to get off the carbs, to get off the couch, to move, to not eat processed sugar, to stay away from the things that are giving them chronic illnesses, which accounts for 70% of chronic disease in the world comes from eating crap and not moving, basically, and 80% of our healthcare costs are there too. So he sees it as a way for the lifeguards to be able to take those people that are coming to them that are drowning, either with chronic disease, diabetes, whatever it may be, and for those doctors to be able to say, well, hey, I think you should go to this CrossFit gym that's down the road. They can help you there.
Cool. So it's more of like I've heard or read about wanting to prescribe, like we want CrossFit to be the prescription. Like we want CrossFit to be the,
you got it, yeah,
kind of the, instead of writing a prescription for a
statin or whatever,
that we want it to be, hey, you need to get into a CrossFit gym and you need to work out and get moving. So that's really cool.
And be part of the community too there. I think a lot of people, when you would go to a doctor originally, they would talk about diet. Hey, you should get on a diet and exercise and go talk to a trainer, right? And so what do? They go to like a 24-hour fitness or something like that, and then they, the trainer's with them for 1 hour, and then they go, okay, you want to buy more sessions of this? It costs X amount of dollars, and it's a weird place to be. But when you go into a CrossFit gym, there's a family and a community there. So the results that we see in CrossFit gyms are exponentially higher than what we would see in like a 24-hour fitness.
Well, and it sticks. I mean, I see it every day. Like I watched someone in class today sit down and like as we were kind of going over strategy of the workout and talking about like what we're trying to get to and, going over scales. I saw like a few eyes drift to the board, and they like look at the people in 5:30, and everyone at 8:30 has a person in 5:30, and they're looking at 5:30 and they're going, God, you know, he might have a bum wing, but gosh, he still puts up a number that I want to try to get. And so, and that's not everybody by any means, but it's still like you're invested because they're invested, and the community aspect makes a really big difference. So I could totally see how that we have the lasting model. We have the you're going to stay in it model for the most part, which is cool. Does Glassman talk at the MDL ones?
Yes. Yeah. Yesterday gave with him and his lawyers, which we'll dive into a little bit here.
Yeah.
Gave an hour and 20-minute talk.
Awesome.
About what's going on between the NSCA and CrossFit, which if you guys haven't seen, that's on the main site. And as they were giving that discussion about what was happening with the NSCA, you could see the doctors just like shaking their heads as he was talking about peer-reviewed this and scientific data this. And they were, and kind of connecting the dots of like, wow, there really is a much bigger picture here that Greg's trying to go after as far as just like falsification of data. What we have taken is like, I guess, strength and conditioning coaches, like we would call ourselves that, like we're strength and conditioning coaches, we're nutrition coaches. We use the peer-reviewed process and the scientific data to help drive our decisions we're making for our clients in a better direction, and that's kind of broken. And so, yes, he does give talks at the MDL ones.
Cool.
And they're amazing.
Yeah. That's like, I'm like a groupie when it comes to that. Well, that's like one of my questions was like, and we should go back to what he talked about at this MDL one. I would love to hear about that. But like, just before we go to that, did he always have the same talk as he had this time? No, or is it always different?
No, this was different because they
just happened.
Yeah, they just, in case you haven't seen, go to CrossFit.com and look up, or just Google NSCA versus CrossFit and it'll pop up. But they basically just won a 6-year-long battle against the NSCA who falsified data and injury rates inside of a peer-reviewed study that went into the National Conditioning and Strength Association's research study book, which is like the Bible of strength and conditioning. And they won that battle. Well, it's still going to go on, but they won like $4 million with the NSCA, and now there's even more that's going to happen. It's just going to keep going. So that was a totally different talk than normal. Normal talk is the swim coach versus lifeguard type of talk. And getting to understand, like a lot of them just keep asking Greg, like, well, great, we leave us level 1. What do you want us to do now?
Right.
It's like just tell people about what the prescription is to get them healthy.
Right.
Which is eat meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch and no sugar, exercise. Get yourself to a box, become part of that community, and just watch what happens. I
mean, it's like pretty brilliant. Like, it's since the MDL ones have been happening, they're close to home for us. So I've always been like super interested in them. Yeah. But since I already have like a skewed view on Western medicine and all that stuff. So like
I heard this. Sorry to interrupt, but I heard that E.C. Sikowski, who owns Optimize Me Nutrition, she was talking about Westernized medicine, and her views were a little bit different than yours, which was funny.
Yeah,
was like,
which is like we all have differing views.
No, totally. But I was just laughing. I was like, Natalie would not agree with this.
Well, it's in it. A lot of like he's got doctors in a room, which is super cool. Like people always think I'm like anti-doctor. That is not the case at all. Like I'm definitely a.
Hey, if you cut yourself, you should probably go to the doctor.
Right. If I need a lifeguard, I'm going to the doctor.
And that's the difference. Is that like you're getting people that are going to the doctor, 2 or 3 times a month because they need more diabetic medication or more statins or more whatever. They're getting checkups on these things that should be getting better and are just staying the same or getting worse. Well,
and not to mention like for instance, when I had my full body hive thing and I went to like my primary care and then I went to an allergist and then I went to a dermatologist and then I everything that they gave me was to cover up the problem, not figure out what the problem was.
Not actually fix the root.
And so that is that's my view is let's figure out what the problem is and don't tell me that you can't, because you can. Yep. It's just very conveyor belty. And
that's somebody comes to you with high blood pressure, you put them on statins versus saying, hey, let's look at your diet and get you exercising.
Right. So that is believe me, Western medicine has saved my daughter's life, so like there is definitely instances where I am all about it, like definitely all about it. And
and if you look at just the, the standard practice of going to a doctor is you go in there, you get 15 minutes with them to tell them your life story and hopefully get a fix, right? And then they're on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And so there's a lot of really cool companies that are popping up, like Steady MD.
Yeah, totally.
With Julie Fouché and her husband Danny, I talked to him yesterday because he was there too, and he was saying that he'll talk to 6 to maybe 8 patients a day, and they each talk that he has with them, which is like a video call, you know,
totally,
lasts anywhere from an hour to an hour and 20 minutes.
So cool.
And it's like once a month, you just video chat with your doctor, your primary care physician. You tell him how you're doing, if there's anything going on. And then he, from there, can like, you know, oh, hey, yeah, I think you should actually go get this medication. Or this is the way to fix it. And it's like, it's taking that such sterile, how can we fix this thing as fast as possible, pop pills type of thing, and turning it into a relationship that you have with your doctor. The same way when we have people that come into our gym here at Coast Range, they have a relationship with the coaches. They're probably more willing to tell them things, and we have more time to help them.
Totally.
And that's what I think Greg wants to see the shift happen in the healthcare industry.
Which would, I mean, I have Kaiser as my insurance, and my mother-in-law has a doctor who actually spends time with her. And I was like, shoot, I'm willing to switch my primary care just for that reason. Like we could even have differing views, but if she's willing to actually sit there and talk through kind of what's going on, like, shoot, I would love that. Yeah. I've always wondered if SteadyMD or something similar to SteadyMD would ever try to network with insurances.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah, there's actually a third-party insurance company that Danny was telling me about.
This is funny because one of my questions was, what do your breaks and your lunches look like?
Oh, yeah.
With MDL one's like, who are you talking to? Who do you get to talk to?
It's called Sedera Health. It's a insurance share company. So it's like everybody buys into it, and then the pot of money goes to wherever it needs to go to.
Yeah.
But they use that, and it's pretty cheap as far as like insurance goes.
Yeah. I've heard good things about that and not so good things about that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of stipulations that go into a lot of them.
Well, and like I've just heard of I don't want to knock it when I don't really know, but I've heard like someone's experience with it, and it just did not cover what they needed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could not imagine being in that scenario.
Well, geez, that's like us right now with June and the NICU. You know, like we get the bill, it's like $100,000 a day to be in there. Could you imagine if you had to pay? If
you had to pay that, I remember we got sent one of the bills to our house, and I opened it and like had a mini heart attack because I was like, wait, and then it was like, no, because you have insurance.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's insane.
And then when insurance pays, and the bill always gets reduced down. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah, totally.
It's never 100,000. It's like maybe 20,000.
Right.
They know how to make things.
Yeah, it's like we're not paying that.
Yeah.
But yes, they are working towards that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I've like looked at SteadyMD so many times.
But they're also SteadyMD is only $100 a month.
Totally.
I mean, it's not cheap. I get that, you know. But if you look
depends on who you are.
Yeah, but look at normal insurance. Like I pay over, I think, $1,500 a month for my insurance, because I own my own business, and I'm not through like a state or a federal company. So it would be cheaper for me probably to do that,
something like
that.
But
with the situation we're in with June and stuff doesn't
totally.
It, so yeah. Anyway, sorry, off track.
Cool. No, that's awesome. So I want to talk about the lawsuit. I think we should talk about that. But I was interested in, what is the media like at these events? Is there any media at these events?
When Greg gives his talk, usually somebody will come out and do that. And at the DDCs, yes, it's a show in a way.
Okay.
Like there's so many doctors and scientists and subject matter experts there that when Greg walks in, it goes from a room of 37 of us, let's say 30 participants and 7 level 1 staff members, to 150 people in a room.
Yeah.
And it's just like it grows every time. It's just bigger. But there's usually always a mic on Greg and the people that are talking, and there's something like that. But nothing too crazy. That's not like in the level 1, there's not a spectacle, but I would imagine at the DDC there definitely is.
That's so interesting. I know that they've taken a huge stance on social media. Obviously, they made big decisions recently, and then they're back.
Yeah, they're back on it.
Yeah, they're back, and I love that. I mean, I love seeing that, and I love following that, and it's valuable for me, obviously, because of my career choice. Yeah. But it's interesting because we're going to talk about this, and I know other people are talking about it, but I want to know how it relates to the average person, and if they could create media behind that too. Like, I feel like they would have a ton of buy-in. Like if they created like media around these things, like I'm willing to bet majority of our gym doesn't know that MDL1s go on.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why? I'm also willing to bet a lot of CrossFit's resources are going into these events.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be super cool to get everybody on board with that. Like, this is what I just feel like everyone has so much negative to say about CrossFit right now. And I'm like, but they're doing cool things. Like, awesome things are happening. And I know Coach isn't into that. Like, he's not into making a spectacle of things. But I'm like, frick, like, people should be fired up about this. Like, they should be on board with this kind of stuff. And they don't know about it. And we're in such a age of media that I'm like, frick. And I know they don't have super big media teams anymore. And I'm not saying redeemed in the dominant kind of videos, but I'm talking just how can we stay informed? Like, how can the average person stay informed?
Yeah, I think it's coming.
Good. Okay.
I think it's coming. There's a lot of stuff, especially with the CrossFit health classes that we're doing, or we're calling them CrossFit wellness classes that we're doing over at HQ with 70 and older population, morbidly obese, chronic disease, congestive heart failure. It basically everybody who's like, I would never do CrossFit.
Right.
Like, we've got hundreds of them over at
doing
CrossFit HQ doing it.
Yeah.
And they're starting to sit down with all of them and go through their stories and put them on camera and talk about their changes and stuff. And so it's a slow process. Like, getting 100 pounds off somebody doesn't happen fast.
Totally.
And they're just being, I think the goal is just to get people healthy first. Try to do the best that we can to fix. And Greg always says too, like at the talk, he'll be like, look, we're not going to change this. Like, soda and, big pharma and all those guys are always still going to be there. It's not going to, we are not big enough to change that machine. And we get that. That's totally okay. We're going to take care of our people though. And we're here for you if you want us. So come on in. Right. And so it's so rare that you find a company that cares so little about what they look like in the media.
I know.
And what they look like on social media.
Totally.
What they look like. And that the person who's running the company actually just cares about getting people healthier.
Yeah.
And that fighting chronic disease and pulling the shadow and the shades off of this whole scientific data, peer reviewed, mess that is happening, and shedding some light on that. And the reason behind why this has become such an authority, right? Like the authority of a peer-reviewed study,
right? The
authority of random controlled trials,
right?
The authority of scientific data, that it's thought of as you don't question it because it's science,
right?
And just so everybody knows, Greg's dad was literally a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
Like his dad was he grew up in a scientific family. That was like, he was like, show me the data, prove to me that it's repeatable, and then I will believe you. And then other than that, I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
And so like Greg's been living and breathing this stuff, and that's what led to CrossFit having the definitions that they do for things, and having the repeatability of data, and being able to redo benchmarks and stuff that other fitness industries don't have. So I think it's coming, but I think that you have to care to look for it in order to find it.
Totally.
Which is kind of a cool thing in a way.
Yeah.
But also I could see where it would be like, man, if we put
which
a
is
little
cool.
bit out there,
Like,
but,
it's cool for me. Like, it's cool for me. But I just feel like I, in the past 6 months to a year, have been defending CrossFit so much.
But okay, let me ask you about that. Defending CrossFit about what?
Okay, so when all the layoffs happened, when sanctionals, like all of the things changed. Okay. I mean, you got it too.
Yeah, but I get it. But it's easy for me to sit back and somebody goes well, why would they change that?
Right.
And I go who cares?
Yeah.
Who are you going to sanctionals? Are you going to regionals? Are you trying to go to the games? Are you trying to do it? Why do you care about that? It doesn't.
Well, but at some point, it's cool that they what I try to do is if they're fired up, they find themselves fired up about it. They're like, well, why'd they lay all these people off? They don't know any of those people, but they're fired up, right?
Yeah, but nobody said that about Disney when they made a bunch of layoffs, to acquire a different company. Nobody was like, well, why would Disney lay off all these people? And who do they think they are? It's no, it's a strategic move in order to make the company better.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I find myself talking about is I remember going through a myriad of emotions too. And then I was like, why do I feel this way? like why do I
change is hard,
like
because
why
change
did
is
I
hard, and when change happens and there's not a lot of communication happening around that
Right.
change, directly to you, it's tough. It's like I'm sure it's frustrating for you or anybody that I would program for if all of a sudden programming looks different and I haven't necessarily explained why programming looks different. But I know why programming looks different. I know what we're going after. I know what the plan is.
But I'm just supposed to expect to...
Well, not necessarily that, but like I could see the frustration on both ends. I could see the athlete or the person's frustration of like, well, tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
Just tell us, and I can also see the frustration on the other end of somebody going like, well, just work out.
Right.
Well, but you're going to be fine. Like, keep doing the thing and let me take care of this other stuff over here.
And I think that that's definitely the sanctionals conversation, right? Like sanctionals, I actually think it's cooler. I've had way more success in the sanctional realm. Like it's super cool. And that was one thing to combat really quickly, but it's the other stuff where it's like, I found myself when people got fired up about it, it was my time to equally fire up about why it's a good thing.
Yeah, defend it, right?
Yeah,
we have to defend these decisions that CrossFit is making, and that's why we're doing this podcast in a way right now.
Right.
Like, it's because there's 15,000 plus affiliates around the world, and if we talk about CrossFit's duty to get the media out or to get the message out or whatever it is, they're doing that constantly at level ones. They're doing that constantly through their .com website that not many of us visit enough, right? Yeah. Go to .com, go to level ones, and then us as affiliate owners. So me, it is my job to make sure that everybody in my gym has a basic understanding of what's going on with CrossFit and what's happening. And that's why we do these podcasts. And that's why we talk about it in our gym. And that's why we were just talking about this yesterday with Pat, where we were talking about one workout a day instead of A, B, C, and D on the whiteboard. Why do we do that versus why we don't? Right. And you create a culture within inside of your business, which is something awesome that Greg allows us to do, is that we're not franchised and being told what to say and how to do it and what to program. Right. But that we have control over our business. And then it's my job as the business owner to let people know, hey, this is why we do one workout a day and not multiples.
Right.
This is why, CrossFit's going in the direction that they are. And imagine if you just had 15,000 people that were spreading that message to everybody in their gym. Great. We would be fine. And everybody would know what's going on. So I think if we as affiliate owners and coaches need to take a much bigger stance and understand that it's on us to make sure that we're getting that message out and understanding what's going on.
I still think it would be cool if they put some things out.
I think it's coming.
Yeah, it's just because, yes, I completely agree. And one of the questions I had was, what is the takeaway for the affiliate owner and what should the affiliate owner do? But I think we are in an age where we have the capacity to reach people on a large scale, which can be really awesome and really terrible, but it can be really awesome. And so it is cool to see all the CrossFit training stuff and all the shift in their thinking and how they post and what they post. I think that they could do things like that as well with I'm not talking about games athletes. I'm talking about what's happening at HQ, what's happening with MDL1s and there's people who are really good at that stuff and they can make it basic. They don't have to make it this big production. It could be simple, and hearing people's stories is what I want, because I want to show that to other people and I want people to feel that and have the courage to walk into a CrossFit gym.
I think that one of the things that affiliate owners can do right now is to ask yourself, do you have any doctors in your box? And if you have a doctor in your box, get them to go to one of those MDL1s and then start referring people to that doctor inside your gym.
Totally.
So asking people, well, who's your primary care and why do you see them? And they'd be like, I don't know, there's my primary care person. Well, I think you should see so-and-so because they're a CrossFitter. And they understand what's really going on with this stuff.
Totally.
They're not going to just pop pills in your mouth because it's what they do. They're going to talk to you and they're going to make your family better.
Yeah. That email you sent us the other day about a member who had hurt themselves and was seeing a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of doctor it was.
The
but
acupuncturist.
And the acupuncturist didn't say stop CrossFitting. The acupuncturist
he's-
was actually adamant the opposite direction, was like, no, I do not want you to stop CrossFit. These are just the things I would appreciate you not doing for this span of time.
And you got it. And that's exactly what they're trying to create.
Yes.
It's a better understanding of what CrossFit is to these doctors or these subject matter experts in these fields that people are going to when they have chronic illness or they have an acute illness, right?
Yeah.
Or acute thing that happens to them. And the people being more educated on what CrossFit actually is.
Totally.
But if they constantly see just the games and the games and the games and the games,
Totally.
they think that that's what CrossFit is. Of course, they're not going to tell their 70-year-old grandma patient to
Right.
go do it.
Yeah. I find myself sometimes on social media doing that, where I'll post a video of my training and then I'll get a question like, for instance, what's the point in doing all of these kipping movements? You know, great question. And like, I posted 30 chest to bar pull-ups the other day, and someone was like, can you just explain to me like what the purpose of that is, like from a fitness standpoint? And I appreciated that, because I was like, okay, I always preface it with, I compete in the sport of CrossFit. Like, CrossFit is also a sport.
Yeah.
That's like 0.01% of the population. So 90% of the people that come into my gym aren't doing this. Like, they aren't doing this, and I don't prescribe this for them, and this isn't something that they should be doing. But with that being said, I do a lot of strict work in order to kind of get myself to a place where I can be doing something like that. But what I'm saying is, I find myself posting these exaggerated videos too. And I'm like, people are watching this and like, what do you do? Like, why are you doing that? And then I'm like, frick. Like, no, it's attainable.
Yeah, but
like, you should come into the gym.
Yeah, but I mean, we have just as many people in our gym that aren't competing that are posting videos on Instagram of them working out and doing strict movements and stuff like that too. So it's just all who you follow and what you look at.
Totally.
And then if you if you see something like that and you're not a CrossFitter, like, do that. Ask that person what they're doing and why. And then I suggest you to go to a CrossFit gym and to meet the people and to hang out and see what happens to you when you just show up 3 times a week and stop eating so much sugar.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about the lawsuit.
Oh man. Okay. Let me switch my gears in my head here. Man, I got a whole bunch of notes. So, okay, what do you guys want to talk about exactly?
Well, give an overview of what it is. So not just what recently happened, but what spurred it on in 2013?
Yeah, it started in 2013.
Yeah, 2013.
The DeVore study came out. So 2013, there was a publication called the DeVore Study that was written by a graduate student, Michael Smith, and his mentor, Stephen DeVore. And it was a peer-reviewed, I put that in quotes, peer-reviewed study published by the NSCA in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. This strength and conditioning research paper, or the strength and conditioning research publication, is basically seen as like the Bible of strength and conditioning science. So like, if you have your CSCS from the NSCA and you've studied this thing from front to back, and you know a lot about the human anatomy and the body and the science behind why you get stronger or faster or more endurance or changing slow twitch muscle fibers or slow or fast twitch muscle, you know about the body, and nobody is discrediting the work that NSCA has put into that stuff and the third parties that have contributed to that research. But anyways, let's look at the paper. So if you look at it at face, when it first came out, it actually looked very positive for CrossFit. And so the study was written as CrossFit-based high-intensity power training improves maximal aerobic fitness and body composition. And you read that header and you're like, well, sweet.
I like it.
Yeah, CrossFit sounds awesome. It sounds like it works. But there are a couple things that were taken away from it that this is what made Greg and everybody kind of go like, whoa, what's going on here for a second? Is that, here's a quote from the paper. So in the paper it said, a unique concern with any high-intensity training program such as HIIT or other similar programs is a risk of overuse injury. Despite a deliberate periodization and supervision of our CrossFit-based training program by certified fitness professionals, and if they're using that word certified, that tells me that these were not CrossFit coaches unless they're level 3 certified coaches, because a level 1 or a level 2 coach cannot call themselves certified. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have a website that has your coaches listed as level 1 certified coaches, please change that. So I'm assuming that this means somebody from the NSCA or a level 3 coach. Going back to my quote, sorry. CrossFit-based training program by certified fitness professionals, a noticeable percentage of our subjects, 16%, did not complete the training program and return for follow-up testing. Although peer-reviewed evidence of injury rates pertaining to high-intensity training programs is sparse, there are emerging reports on increased rates of muscle, skeletal, and metabolic injuries in these programs. This may call into question, and this is the big part you guys need to listen to, this may call into question the risk versus benefit ratio for extreme training programs, as relatively small aerobic fitness and body composition improvements were observed among individuals who already are considered to be above average or well above average, and that it may not be worth the risk or injury and lost training time. Further, work in this area is needed to explore how to best realize improvements to health without increasing risk from above background levels associated with participation in any non-high intensity based fitness program. And then it went on to say this. So that's bad enough. Basically, they're saying that like the subjects that we used in this study were already well above average as far as body composition and fitness goes. So of course they improved it, and the people that weren't were the ones that got injured. And they go on to say, out of the original 54 participants, a total of 43 fully completed the training program and returned for follow-up testing. Of the 11 subjects who dropped out of the training program, only 2 cited cited time concerns. Only 2 cited time concerns, and then 9, this is the 16% of the total subjects, cited overuse or injury for failing to complete the program or finish follow-up testing. So 9 out of 43 participants said that they got injured, and that's why they couldn't continue it. They were doing CrossFit, and this was done this study was done at the University of Ohio, which is where William Kramer, who's the editor of the NSCA's research papers, is also a professor there. And it was done at a local CrossFit gym in Ohio. And so when this came out, obviously Greg said, well, hey guys, go find out who got injured and why.
Right.
Go to that box, find out what happened and why, so that we can prevent this from happening.
Right.
So they went there, talked to the guy who owned the gym. Guy who owned the gym said, nobody got injured. Dove into it a little bit deeper. Greg sent out a team of lawyers. Lawyers went out and interviewed every single person who did this study that was part of this research paper. And every single one of them said, yeah, no, I didn't get injured. No, there was no injury. So what ended up happening as this went to court, so Greg sued the NSCA, or CrossFit sued the NSCA. The NSCA went to federal court. During that time, the federal judge asked for basically, I want every email, text from both parties about anything that's had to do with, CrossFit, basically. NSCA turned over a certain number of things. CrossFit turned over all their stuff, and then in that process, while they're going through this federal court, the NSCA sues Greg individually and CrossFit for defecation of name. Greg, in an article, called them a soda whore.
Yeah, of course he did.
And so they took him to court saying, you're ruining our name, and this is why. And in that process in state court, all of a sudden, thousands of new documents showed up pertaining to CrossFit and everything.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait a second. The lawyers for CrossFit go, where was all this stuff in federal court? You're supposed to hand over everything. And they went, oh, shoot. So a federal judge said, okay, we're sending in a forensic investigator who's going to go sweep basically CrossFit and the NSCA's computers and cell phones of everything, and we're going to find everything. Mm-hmm. In the process, a bunch of people at the NSCA were caught trying to wipe clean their computers and their phones, and obviously you can't do that. Like, you will find stuff on there no matter what. So they pulled up a bunch of stuff just basically showing that, or not basically, showing that when they came back with this research study that showed 0 injuries doing this CrossFit training program, that they sent them back and said, I can't publish this. You need to get injuries.
Goodness.
So they made up these injuries, peer-reviewed the study, and then put it in the NSCA's Journal of Research, stating it as fact.
Goodness.
When they knew it was a straight-up lie.
Right.
CrossFit is obviously a direct competitor of the NSCA. The NSCA realizes that, knows that what CrossFit is doing is legit, knows that what we do in our gyms is going to take away from funding of people getting certifications through the NSCA. They saw them as a threat, and they're trying to start the process. Now, I've seen a lot of people that have posted things like going like, get over it, who cares? The NSCA is legit. Like, nobody really cares about this stuff, like CrossFit. Like, stop trying to pick fights, right? I feed my family off of this business. And if there are people out there reading headlines saying that CrossFit injures you and that you should not do CrossFit because you could be injured, that's not okay with me or the other 15,000 affiliates around the world.
Right.
Right? So thank you, Greg, and thank you, CrossFit, for continuing to fight stuff like this.
Right.
When everybody else is telling you not to.
Right.
Well, Green brought it even back to just in general. He said this case has vast serious implications for the production and use of purported science in American society. Other victims of academic fraud may not be willing or able to fight back the way that CrossFit has. And I thought that was in the Morning Chalk Up's post, but that's crazy because there are, like you're using this science, like you're using peer-reviewed, what people are basing things off of and what people have used as fact for so long. Yeah. You're not just like, it's not just, I don't see it as just an attack at CrossFit. Like I see it as
it's an attack on science.
It's like like he said, American society, like this is a bigger deal than just CrossFit. And the fact that CrossFit has the resources to fight it is awesome. Yep. Like because they can bring it to light because it directly affects CrossFit, but also that directly affects everything that we look at and all of these recommendations that are being put out and all this stuff that we're being fed.
Yeah. And so think about that really quick. So the NSCA's Journal of Research is considered like the holy Bible of sports strength and conditioning. Right. Right. And everybody's going like, let it go, CrossFit. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's such a big deal that this one study, this one published paper is the single most viewed article on the NSCA's journal that has ever been published. Right. And so the single study that has the most views to the NSCA is the one that claims that CrossFit injures people. Well,
right, because it's a confirmation bias. People are always trying to confirm they're always trying to prove their point.
Everybody that's always said the whole time, CrossFit's going to injure you, CrossFit's going to injure you.
Right, they're looking at that article.
They're pumping that stuff out. Right. So much to the point where Outside Magazine even advertised on the front page of one of their magazines, this was a headline, is CrossFit destroying the world? And they used that article as their reference point for it. And so then don't try to tell me that this isn't a big deal. This is a huge, huge deal. It goes even deeper. This was a starting point for the NSCA, ACE, NASM. These companies got together and have been lobbying to try to make it illegal for us to do CrossFit unless we are certified through their companies, because they believe that the level 1 that we do isn't enough for somebody to start a business and to get people fit. It's not enough, is what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And so they've lobbied in federal court to make what we do as CrossFit coaches illegal. And they've gotten shut down only because Greg sends the lawyers after him and shuts them down. Right. And if Greg wasn't there and CrossFit's lawyers weren't there, what I do in this, I would not have this business. Right. Our members would not be here. They would be finding another gym somewhere else because what we're doing would be illegal. Right.
Which is crazy. Like,
it's crazy that if I tell somebody to push their knees out and keep their heels down, that is illegal.
Right. Or the fact that my text messages and inbox in a day with people telling me that what we did here made a difference in their life. Like that it's even more than just like the physical benefits of doing CrossFit for me is like pulling up a text message of someone telling me like, thank you for investing in me, even though I didn't have this to give or something, like that. Like it's different. Like it's different here than it is in, I was in the strength and conditioning world, I was in that, and it's just different, and it's making lasting change. And if you took that away, I know that there would be people up in arms.
This is what would happen if we took CrossFit away. People would go back on statins, back on diabetic medication. They would start drinking soda again, eating crappy again. And all of the lobbyists that are behind a lot of these peer-reviewed studies that are funded by Coca-Cola and Pepsi and the soda whores, as Greg calls them, are directly affecting the data that is going into these publications.
Right.
They are directly affecting it. And if this is the most viewed publication on the NSCA's Strength and Conditioning Journal ever, right? And it was a complete lie. What is everything else?
Yeah. What is science?
Exactly. And that is the whole point. If you guys are looking for a good read, there's a book called Rigor Mortis that you guys should read about the falsification of data, and not necessarily that people are trying to lie, but that they're just not doing as good of a job as they should be doing in science.
I was a science major. I mean, I was a science major. I took every science class. I mean, I spent time doing my own studies. Like, I had a whole class where I ran my whole own study and I did everything, and it will be the first one to tell you. And we had the opportunity to try to get it published if we wanted to, and I didn't, because I fabricated some of mine because I was trying to pass a class, and
or get recognition in your community, or get more funding.
And
to
so
do another
I
study.
knew 100%. There's no way I could try to get this published, because I'm trying to get an A and prove that I know what I'm doing and know how to write this paper and that kind of a thing.
Well, and go even further from there. Like, so think about whatever your thesis was on, and then what did you base all of your evidence off of?
Exactly.
Other research papers and other studies that
had
done,
my same hypothesis,
but that you were considering were fact.
Right.
Did you go back and try to retest any of those theories?
Heck
first?
no.
Exactly.
I didn't have time.
And so that's like one of the big things that's happening, is that we're taking a lot of these scientific, factual things that we consider to be fact, and the nutrition industry is rampant with this, right? Where we take things like, imagine the original pyramid. Like, here's your food pyramid study should eat. Like, 90% of your food should be grains, and then everything else from there. And we know that now, because somebody finally questioned it and went back and went, well, let's retest this, which is the base of scientific research. Is it replicable? Can can it happen again? Can I take the most basic thing, 1 + 1 = 2, and replicate that every single time without getting a false positive? And now we know that 1 + 1 = 2, because we've replicated it so many times. But when it comes into a scientific study, like we're talking about with the NSCA or any of these things that we're doing, where especially the doctors at the level ones, you hear it from them all the time. Well, this peer-reviewed study told me that blah, 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 and it's like, okay, well, have you tested that hypothesis?
Well, and there's so many factors that are in that mix. Like, can you actually replicate every factor that went into that study?
If you're a good scientist, you should be. If you're good, a good scientist, their job is to prove themselves wrong. They're not emotionally connected to anything they do. They do something, they get a result, and then they do everything they possibly can to try to prove that result wrong. That is science. And if you go through every possible angle to try to prove this thing wrong, and it turns out that it's actually right, well, now it's science.
Yeah.
But until you go through uncover everything you possibly can and try to prove that thing wrong, then it's not science.
It's also super interesting how the verbiage can be used in the way you want it to be used. Like, there's so many intricacies. Like, take a statistics class, and it's so like the wording that you have to use, and you can skew the way that you say what you found too. I mean, it's pretty obvious in the divorce study. Like, the way that they talk is like, wait, is that really what it said? Like, is that actually? So it's so intricate. Like, it is so intricate, and it has so much room for error, like peer-reviewed studies and science, and like it's hard to believe that every person is just like, I'm going to do this exactly how it should be done, because I'm not connected at all to what I think should be the outcome.
Well, here's the one thing that no scientist, nutritionist, doctor, or anybody else will refute: that eating meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar at intakes that will support exercise and not body fat, and doing constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity is going to make you live a long time.
Well, shoot, the Game Changer guy might.
I don't think he will.
Yeah.
Like, even if you listen to his talk with like Kresser and him and Joe, they brought up a lot of times that like having a whole food diet that includes animal products is not bad. And he said multiple times, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you that animal products cannot be bad. It's the industrial farming. It's the, okay, if you're eating a cow that's in an industrial farm that's being fed corn and grain and not in sanitary conditions, that's bad for you. And nobody disagrees with that.
Right.
Right? And nobody disagrees with that. But if you're eating food that is in the environment it was meant to be in, grazing on grass and being in the sun and food that was put in soil that has good nutrients in it and stuff, and then go exercise pretty hard, lift some heavy weights every once in a while, get out in the sun. Nobody's refuting that that's wrong. Nobody's saying that that's bad.
Right.
It's as simple as that. It's an elegant solution to the world's most vexing problem, which is chronic disease. And chronic disease is 100% avoidable with what you put in your mouth and what you choose to do with your day. Get your ass in a CrossFit gym. Stop eating crap out of a box and out of a package. Drink some water and go to sleep. You do those very simple things, you're going to live a long time. But that doesn't put money back into the industry. In the industry, when I say the industry, I'm talking about just any food company that peddles sugar, any pharmaceutical company that's trying to get you to take this drug, whatever it is, they're not going to get their money. So, of course, they're going to fight against this stuff.
Totally.
And it's our job as affiliate owners and CrossFit coaches to pull back the layers and pull back the curtain and say, look, it's really simple. This is all you got to do.
Right.
Don't overcomplicate it. That doesn't mean, though, that if you have a major health problem, you shouldn't talk to your doctor and you shouldn't be taking a medication that's going to help you get there or whatever it is. But it is saying that before you dive into something and go like, well, it's peer-reviewed and scientific research, so it must be fact, is to ask yourself, where is that coming from? And is it really necessary? And it's 90% of the time that we just confused and we make things too complicated than it needs to be, right? And when the real solution is just very elegant and simple. And the real solution is like, you walk into a CrossFit gym, there's no machines anywhere because we don't need them.
Right.
So we got rid of them. Right. And just move your body through space, become part of a community that's doing the same, and you'll be just fine. And I think that these MDL1s are really starting to kind of like fix that hole in the boat versus trying to just pedal the water out of the boat, is that we're taking the doctors, and when you go to your doctor and you're like, hey, I'm feeling kind of dizzy, and they give you an A1C test and they go, oh, you're a diabetic. And you go, oh, shoot, what do I do now? And instead of them going, well, here's all your insulin, and, which I'm not saying you shouldn't get right away. It's probably very important. But instead of going, here's your, concoction of medications, I'll see you in a couple weeks, and let's see how this is going. They say, okay, well, I know this guy. He owns this gym. I know this girl. She talks about nutrition. Let's go talk to them. And I know this community that's amazing. And you'll actually want to stay there. Right. You know what I mean? And nobody's going to make fun of you, and nobody's going to look at you like you're weird because you're overweight or because you have this disease or because you're 70 years old or because you're whatever. They're going to treat you as an equal and as one of their own, and they're going to love it. Totally. And it's like this CrossFit gyms are the lifeboats. They're the lifeboats of chronic illness. And when I first started doing CrossFit, I wanted to go to the CrossFit Games. Right. Like, I wanted to be the fittest I possibly could be. And it wasn't until I started to see my members losing hundreds of pounds, getting off diabetic medication, then bringing their mom or their sister or their brother or their girlfriend or their wife or their husband in to reap the same rewards that they're reaping, that I realized that this is a much bigger thing than go into the CrossFit Games or any of that kind of stuff. So I hope that if anything that we can take away from this podcast with our members alone at Coach Change CrossFit is that whenever a documentary comes out on Netflix or a new peer-reviewed study comes out or a new whatever, if you want to take part of that, let's use the game changer thing, for example. Hi, Carrie Ann. Let's take the game changer thing, for example. And somebody wants to go vegan or wants to go vegetarian. Before you do that, come in, let's get you on the in-body, let's do some tests on some benchmark workouts, let's go get a blood test, and then let's do it for 6 weeks. Be vegetarian, be vegan, come back in, get back on the in-body, retest your benchmarks, go get a blood test. And then do that every few months. And if it works for you, great. But what are you doing? You're becoming your own scientist. You're trying to replicate the data, and you're trying to see that it's getting better. Don't just blindly follow someone or something because it was peer-reviewed or scientific data or so-and-so said it, so it must be true. Follow the facts. Mm-hmm. That will lead you to where you need to go. And our coaches here have all the tools to help you do that and to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Go take a level 1.
Exactly. Even if you don't want to coach.
Even if you don't want to coach, go take a level 1. It'll change your life.
Totally.
Cool.
Sweet. Thanks, Wes.